Sawyer and Saeed argue about when's the right time to check the signal when they hear something running through the bushes. So everyone runs, but Sawyer, who pulls out a gun and fires almost a full magazine load at the thing, they all come back, and it turns out that what Sawyer killed was a polar bear. I'm sure most of you guys get this too, but when you talk to people who don't watch the show, they think, oh, it's that show with polar bears on the island. Well, they don't know that polar bears actually do play a big part on the show. As we see in Season 3, they were actually trained by the Dharma Initiative in the cages. And in Season 4, we see that C.S. Lewis finds the skeleton of a polar bear in the desert. We know from the Season 4 finale that the island can be moved, that the only way to move the island, though, is to turn the frozen donkey wheel down in the icy cold room. But by moving it, the person that turns it can't return to the island. Polar bears are probably on the island trained to turn the wheel whenever Dharma wanted them to, so they wouldn't have to lose a human in the process. And we see in Season 3 that polar bears were once trained in the same cages that Kate and Sawyer were in, and apparently they're really smart and trained for some reason that we didn't know at the time. And we see that Ben was sent to the exact same desert where C.S. Lewis found the polar bear remains with the Dharma tag on it. And also in the Season 1 DVDs, they said that filming the polar bear attack scene became problematic because this is what it originally looked like. And as you can see here, they used a stuffed animal polar bear instead. And it might work in when stuffed animals attack, but it didn't work here, so they just made the polar bear completely CGI. Kate looks all nervous and immediately asks Sawyer where he got the gun, and he replies that he stole it off the U.S. Marshal. Kate then steals it from him and asks how to use it. Sawyer smiles, and she takes it apart and gives a piece to each man, as Sawyer whispers in her ear that he knows her type. And we find out a few seconds later that it was actually Kate who was a prisoner, and she sits by Edward Mars, the Marshal, on the plane. He's mocking her, and they feel turbulence. Then we hear Cindy make the announcement to buckle in their seatbelts. And now the blooper here is what Cindy announces in Jack, Charlie, and Kate's flashbacks on the plane. If you remember in Jack's flashback, Cindy says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the pilot has switched," on the fasten seatbelt sign. In Charlie's flashback, Cindy says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned," on the fasten seatbelt signs. And in Kate's flashback, Cindy says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has switched," on the fasten seatbelt signs. No biggie though. Kate says to the Marshal, "Can I ask you a favor?" And right as she's about to, the boom happens. A briefcase flies and knocks out Edward, and the back of the plane rips apart. At the beach, Hurley's trying to help Jack tend to the guy with shrapnel in him, who turns out to be Edward Mars. But when Jack removes a piece of metal, Hurley faints and falls on the Marshal. As Jack stitches up the wound, the pain causes Edward to regain consciousness. And we still aren't sure if it's the pain from the shrapnel that woke him up, or from Hurley falling on him. He breathes and grabs Jack's neck and barks, "Where is she?" Not sure that's the first thing I'd ask, waking up on the beach on a random island. Saeed tries the radio and realizes that there's already another signal broadcasting from nearby on the island. They hear a French transmission, and Shannon, as the only French speaker, tries to translate. She hears a distress signal from a woman saying, "I'm all alone. It killed them. It killed them all." And the black rock is also mentioned in the transmission, but Shannon doesn't pick it up. Saeed calculates from the counter on the loop that the message has been playing for about 16 years. 16. Okay, now here's the actual translation of the message. You can see that she's referring to the threat as an it or a he. Also, she mentions a man named Brennan taking keys. Not sure what that's about. And also later, we find out from Danielle that the distress signal replaced a previous loop transmission of the numbers, repeating over and over and over. And that was the original signal that brought Danielle and her team to the island in the first place. In the Lost Experience, the Sri Lanka video suggests that the original broadcast was a Dharma Initiative broadcast of the Hurley's numbers. If you remember, I talked about it last video. And that Sri Lanka video says that the original signal was encrypted. But in 1988, Sam Toomey and Leonard Sims, remember Leonard from the mental ward, they were at a South Pacific listening station with Rousseau's team, and they all detected the broadcast of the numbers without encryption. according to the Lost Experience. And also, if Rousseau speaks English, why was the message only in French? Who knows? And in the Long Con episode, Sayid and Hurley receive another message on the transceiver, and it's similar to the first time they listened. It says, "You must help us," and then it says, "Make it to the Black Rock." And also, if you remember, the Flame station was able to receive the signal, so the others, or at least Mikhail, must have been aware of this transmission, but allowed it to continue for some reason. Either the others were confident that the signal would not be received by the outside world, or they were unable to alter the signal. And Rousseau says "il" when describing the threat, which in French can mean either it or he. If she was one of the Dharma, assuming she lied about everything else she has said, then she may be referring to Ben as the threat and him initiating the purge. And this would also fit in with everyone being dead, and she would be asking the Dharma people off the island to come and get her. The group realizes that if the message is still playing, the call for help was probably never answered. Charlie looks worried and says, "Guys, where are we?" And remember I said at the beginning to keep in mind the length of Saeed's facial hair. Look here. Wonder how it grew so fast in that hour. Okay, now unanswered questions time. I have a few of them here that still haven't been answered yet by Season 4. First one is, what was Kate's favor that she was asking for from the U.S. Marshal? Then also, why did Dharma allow Rousseau's transmission to broadcast for the 4 years before the purge? And why did the others allow the broadcast after the purge when they didn't want anyone finding the island? And who or what do you think the threat was that killed Rousseau's party? Remember, she says it was a sickness later, but in the message she says it is outside. And lastly, who is the man named Brennan mentioned in the transmission, and what are the keys that he took for? Really want to know what you guys think about those, so leave a comment if you can, or even if you want video response. Love seeing those. Okay, and that's it for this episode. Again, there weren't that many secrets in this episode like there were in, say, last episode or Season 4. But hopefully I'll have one of these videos out for you soon. Again, thanks for all the nice comments you guys left. Really appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon, and God bless.